Warning: this story discusses themes of suicide and mental health that some readers may find confronting and triggering. There is something South Australian mum Tanaya Pichugin-Falciani wants you to know, and it's this: suicide is not a selfish act, it is one of pure desperation. It was a harrowing day in May, 6 years ago, when Pichugin-Falciani tried to take her own life. Then 20 years old, Pichugin-Falciani had ended a toxic relationship. She was trying to co-parent her son, had just started a new job, and found herself drowning in a wave of emotional and mental distress. All of her problems seemed to come to a head, and she remembers just wanting the pain to end. Read more. Aussies told they don't need qualifications to ask, "Are you okay?" People can think that I was being selfish and leaving my son behind, but, in my mind, it was the most selfless thing that I could have done because I felt like I was the problem for my son, Pichugin-Falciani said. I felt like I was a problem for everyone around me, and taking myself out of the picture is how I would help everyone. Suicide is not selfish. It's the way we are trying to help everyone around us. We're not in the right frame of mind. We are just desperate, so desperate. Pichugin-Falciani suffered catastrophic injuries from her suicide attempt and was rushed to the Royal Adelaide Hospital in a critical condition. I was put into surgeries and my family were told they didn't know if I was going to come out of those surgeries alive, she said. It was about a week later, when doctors finally allowed her to remove the bandages from her face, that Pichugin-Falciani said she had a moment of realization. I looked at my face and I was thinking, these are all your injuries, but you're still here. That was definitely my wake-up call. From then on, I knew that I had to fight. Pichugin-Falciani, who is a proud Garangeri and Narunga woman, said the roots of her depression and mental distress were complex and had taken time to untangle. Pichugin-Falciani's birth mother, a First Nation woman who also had children at young age, struggled with substance abuse. She had her own battles with her mental health and developed schizophrenia. As a baby, Pichugin-Falciani was placed in foster care alongside her two brothers. Although her foster parents were loving and generous, Pichugin-Falciani found herself rebelling in her teenage years as her feelings of abandonment, and the effects of intergenerational trauma, took hold. Abusive relationships also took a toll, as did the pressures of being a single mom. Looking back, Pichugin-Falciani said she believes something as small as an acquaintance or workmate noticing something was wrong could have made a difference in her case. If someone at the childcare center noticed that I wasn't getting back on time and getting lots of late fees, if they had asked if I needed support, or if one of my bosses asked me if I was okay and let me know that there was support out there, I might not necessarily have been in that situation, she said. Today's society is so shut off, sometimes you do literally need to ask, "Are you okay?" In the years following Pichugin-Falciani's suicide attempt, she has met her husband and had 3 more children. Her feelings now when she thinks of her survival are of absolute relief. "My son was just a little baby at the time. It hurts my heart, it brings me to tears, that I almost wasn't here. So much has happened since then and I would have missed out on all of it. I'm very, very thankful. But the road to recovery had not been easy," Pichugin-Falciani said, adding that looking after her mental health was now about vigilance. "I have worked extremely hard and been extremely determined to make the life that I have now. After my suicide attempt, I learned a lot of information which could help my mental health get better, and am showing up to the appointments. I'm seeking help when I feel like my emotions and feelings are too much." It's the advice that Pichugin-Falciani now gives to others who are struggling. Pichugin-Falciani said she hopes her story will help give courage to anyone who needs it to take the difficult step to ask for help. "I don't want to have this conversation again." Social media strategist Craig Mack is someone who knows how difficult it can be to ask for help. The 44-year-old Sydney-sider decided to become an "Are You OK?" Day ambassador in 2017 after hearing of yet another suicide within the LGBT community. "I was having a conversation with, I think, the 9th person in about 18 months who had lost a friend of theirs to suicide," Mack said. "They were saying the exact same things that I've heard people saying my entire life, that their friend basically seemed really happy, and you would never have known." The story resonated on a personal level with Mack, who had himself made 3 attempts to take his own life, the last of which was 10 years ago. "I've lived with managing depression since I was about 16. he said. It's not a story I ever thought I would tell publicly, but the conversation with my friend triggered something, and I thought if I've got the experience to be able to help in some way I should, because I don't want to have this conversation again. Like Pichugin-Falciani, childhood trauma played a part in Mac's mental health issues. There were bikie gangs and police raids. Learning how to roll joints at 6 was one of my chores. While Mac said his dark, twisted sense of humor had allowed him to turn the damaging chaos of his upbringing into popular dinner party anecdotes, he had also since been through a lot of therapy to help unpack the effect it had on his mental health. Mac likens the ups and downs of his mental health journey to a roller coaster ride. Rather than fighting the ride, sometimes it's about accepting it, he said. There are times when I can feel the cloud roll in and there's things that I can do to push it back, and I know that I can, and then there's other times when it's like there's no point fighting. Just know that every emotion is temporary. I think one of the biggest learnings that I had was accepting every emotion is valid and okay. There's a strange kind of power that comes with that, and knowing that nothing is permanent. The flip side that I find challenging is when you're surrounded by the cloud, it can seem almost impossible sometimes to put your hand up and ask for help. It is here, Max said, that the key message of today's "Are you okay?" day about encouraging others to check in with a simple question becomes so important. If people make the offer to listen, it might not be the first time that they open up, but when someone is ready and feels comfortable they will, Max said. It was important for people to remember that they didn't need to be an expert to check in with someone, just a friend. You don't need to have the answers, you don't have to be the therapist, he said. Sometimes it's just about listening and then mentioning the supports that are available, or suggesting a visit to a GP. If you, or someone you know is struggling, please reach out to these organizations: Lifeline, 13 11 14, Lifeline. org.au Suicide Callback Service, 1300-659-467, Suicide Callback Service. org.au Beyond Blue, 1300-224-636, beyondblue.org.au/forums Men's Line Australia, 1300-789-978, Men's Line.